All right, so we are week 4 now. Oh my gosh, it's like a month down already at the end of the week. Yay! Week 4, day 1, and we are switching topics. About time. We're gonna start getting into object-oriented programming, which is the basis of our back-end programming. I don't know if I want to say paradigm. That seems like the wrong word for that. But a lot of modern languages are object-oriented programming languages. And we're going to learn about what objects are and what object-oriented programming means. But if you work in Python, if you work in like C Sharp, if you work in Java, all these things they use objects as like the backbone to their programming development. So this whole like week 4 intro here shows you we're going to be learning OOP with classes with inheritance. I think we're going to spend the next few weeks in OOP, week 5 and week 6. It looks like we strayed from that for a little bit, but 2 solid weeks of what OOP is and how to use it in our programming. So week 4, day 1, we're going to start learning about classes. Let's get to it. Pull this back in here. Okay, so let's use what we already know how to do and try to like start setting up a book inventory system for some business, some like library or bookstore business. We're going to develop a book inventory system for them. And this system needs to take in a lot of different books and keep information about their titles, their authors, their publishers, etc. Like all these specific things about these books. If I wanted to create like a list, a list of books that have a whole bunch of information associated with each book, what kind of data structure should I use to save these books? Like, would just a
Cool.
list work if I just listed down like uh The Hobbit and then the author here next. Let's do J. Does this look like this is a good data structure for holding information about our books?
Now, don't you need key value
Exactly.
pairs? You need a
Yeah,
dictionary.
exactly. This list is great because it can hold a whole bunch of different values, but I have no idea what these strings are supposed to represent. Just in and of itself, we could guess, but let's use key value pairs to explicitly define what each of these values are to this book. So instead of doing a list, we're going to use a dictionary with key value pairs. So let's say book 1, we'll assign it a value. Oh, I'm on the wrong set of keys here. Book 1 is going to be a dictionary, and it's going to be key value pairs. So we would say the title of this book is The Hobbit. Cool. And then the author, I don't want to make anything capitalized. We'll just keep it in case. I think that's the conventions for Python here. J.R.R. Open. Okay. And then we'll throw in publisher, which was, I looked all these up ahead of time so I could have data. I didn't know this offhand. Allen and Unwin. Okay. It's the publisher. And I trusted Google for this last. Let's throw in pages too. So how many pages the book has 310 or 310. Okay. So cool. I've added book 1 to my inventory system. Let's say this is my way of adding it to the database. Got it added. Now we get another book in. All right, now we've got book 2. Okay, let's make another object for book 2 that's going to hold the title of it, just like book one. This one's going to be 1984. Okay. And now the author, because I want to keep it similar to how all my books are expected to be in here. We have title, author, A. George Orwell. All right, publisher. Go ahead and find that information. That is Secker and Warburg. I just realized how I know absolutely no publishers besides like maybe is Penguin? Penguin's a publisher, right? I feel that's a publisher. Probably children's books. And then of course we had Pages as well. Okay, oops, that's not a, we're doing 328, I guess. Okay, phew. All right, and we got another book. We've got book 3 coming in. Oh my gosh. Let's add this one too. Holy cow. And it's going to be the same thing we've been doing before. Let's make another dictionary. And we got to get its title in our system. This is getting to be a lot. Okay, Dune. Now we'll add this book. This author is going to be Frank Herbert. Didn't know that either. This publisher is, who is it? Chilton. I think I've heard that one. Books. And how many pages it has? We have 412. Okay. Is this terrible yet? Are we having a fun time adding all these books in here like this? Not too terrible? Okay, let's keep going. We're gonna get an order, or we're gonna get like a few more books in. Book 4. Okay. So it's not too bad. I can do this. I can keep adding these books like this. Their title. It's very readable. You know, I can see everything. That's a weird prompt foundation. I don't even know that book, Foundation. I just asked for books from Google. Asimov, okay. If you say so. Publisher, okay, is the Gnome Press. Okay. Is this real? I wonder if they just gave me spoof data. Has anybody read that book? And 255 pages. Okay, whew, well, let's take a break from adding books to my inventory system. Now I want to be able to give this app the ability to like see the book information on the screen. Do we remember how to target values associated with a certain key in a dictionary? Like if first I'll make my function. We're going to call this print book. And it's going to take in a book dictionary. Oh my gosh, I can type. So how can I just print out, let's say, a book's title using its dictionary? Do you remember how to
Index?
access?
Isn't it the index? Using the index?
So an index is for what data type? Is that for dictionaries or lists?
Lists.
Lists, yeah. So lists are the ones like we had above. These have indexes because they're in a specific order. Dictionaries, little known fact, when I went through, dictionaries were not ordered. So that meant that they could be, these keys could be in whatever order. I think current versions of Python do keep them ordered, but I wouldn't rely on that. So we don't know technically where these live in the dictionary. So we can't use index, but we can use something else.
Isn't it like dot key or dot value or something?
Yeah, so we can use dot notation. We can also use the like brackets, which are sometimes a little bit easier to target strings as the keys. So let's do the brackets just to make sure we actually target the string that we're looking for. But we could do dot notation to target as well. Book dot title. But let's
I
do,
actually have a question. I guess I got confused because I thought maybe I don't know what it's called, but I thought the brackets were like, because when we use index, we're using the brackets. That's why I said brackets, because I didn't know how else to.
okay. Got it. Yeah, that could be, yeah, because we usually do see brackets when we throw in an index in the list for sure. With the dictionaries, having that bracket is just, I don't know, it's just the syntax to throw in the key within those brackets. So it's not
Gotcha.
the index, it's the key. Um, but yes, very close. I can see how that could be confusing for sure. So we can get the title just by referencing the key name in these brackets that we're trying to get. Cool. So this is an easy function to make. We can grab each book title. Let's grab each book author as well, and then we'll add the publisher at the very end. And that should be enough information for my little function here that just prints out. So let's give it a run, make sure it works. Let's call print book on, let's pass in book 4 and just make sure that this works. New terminal, scroll down here, and we will, am I in week 1, day 4? Yes. So classes.py. All right, cool. So that works great. It took in my book 4 and printed out the title, author, and publisher. Awesome. Okay, we got another book coming into our inventory here. So let's add another book into this. We will go ahead and comment this out for now because we already did that. So book 5 is going to equal, oops. Let's see, what do oh, I like this, The Great Gatsby. And don't fact check me on any of these like titles, authors, and publishers and pages because I just asked for data from Google. So if they're wrong, it's not my fault. I just wanted some. There's also sites that can give you mock data as well for your use. We can look at that later at some point. But author is F. Scott Fitzgerald. Cool. And then publisher is Charles Scribner's Sons, and pages is 180. Okay, we added that book in. Let's use our system here to print book for book 5 now and make sure that works. Oh no, I had an issue. What is my issue? What did I mess up? Let's look at the bottom here. In errors, we read from bottom up, right? So the last thing it says, it gives me a key error publisher. Okay, so it errored out on this line here where it's calling print book publisher.
The spelling publisher on book 5?
Sorry, what was that?
The spelling in publisher on book 5?
Yes, yes. So I was so tired of adding all of these books into this inventory system that I mistakenly typed one of these keys incorrectly. And now my whole function breaks. I can't use this function reliably because I am entering these in manually, one at a time, with the same exact information, right? They all have title, author, publisher, and pages. I expect them to be the same. I want them to be the same. But because I keep adding them in manually one at a time, obviously there's bound to be errors. So this one, I messed up. This book now is in my system all messed up with some random key that my function doesn't take into account. We could see that it worked okay for the first 2 because those keys existed. But when it got to publisher, couldn't find it. So we have a solution for this. right now, I wish that I had a way to just add books in a way that the computer or the program automatically knew that every book has a title, every book has an author, every book has a publisher and pages. Like I want a template. I want a template to just keep adding these dictionaries into my system so that I don't have mistakes like this pop up where I accidentally type something weird. So this is what classes do for us. Oh, and I don't have chat. I pulled chat up and first thing I see, oh, Rain, you spell it wrong. Yes, I did. That was exactly what I did. Okay, so now I'm gonna pull over some of the README pictures here. So a class is Python's solution for this problem of creating like a template that has similar keys that can be used across the board. And we're gonna look kind of more into what each of these are as we're messing with them and creating them, but the class is like a type of an object. It sets up the different variables that are associated with this object. And you can think of it like a template for creating it. So I would make a class of books that would help me create these dictionaries or objects, which is what this part is. This is an object and it's called a class instance. So a class we set up as a template. When we call the class, it does this thing called instantiation, and it creates an instance of the object. So objects are instances of this class. It's going to be kind of confusing till we get in and start working with it. But if we're looking here at what I'm typing out, this is the end result of each, like, this is what I eventually will have is just a whole bunch of books with their individual, we're going to call them attributes in classes. So I'll start calling them that now, but they each have their own definitions for these attributes. And that is what this instance is. The class we're going to create will make our template so that we don't have to type this out every single time we put a book into our system, because this was annoying. I want to make it faster, easier. Okay, these pictures, I don't like them being at the beginning of the lesson there because it's kind of confusing, but now we're going to dive in and start looking one at a time at what a class is first, and then we will instantiate an instance of the class. Okay, any questions before I keep moving on?
I had a quick question.
Yes.
Really quick, in our code, when we printed it, the pages didn't show up.
Yeah, because I didn't ask to print page.
Oh, I knew that.
But that's a good point. And I would probably want to add that if I did, in fact, want to see everything in this. But we could also do like a for loop, right? We could say like for key in book 4 print like the key value, we could do that for loop to go through and print everything. I was just picking out specifics. That is a very good point. All right, let's make a class so I don't have to keep adding these things one at a time and making typos. Let's take book 5 out of there since I messed that up. Okay, so how we define a class in Python, super easy. We say class. So we're literally, it's like a function where we say def and then the function name. We say this is a class and then we give it a name. And typically the name is associated with whatever type of object you want to create. So I'm creating books, right? I want to make book objects. So we're going to call this class book. Simple as that. I've set up a class and it's called book. Now, I guess I will do this. Yeah, we'll step through it like the README does. So the class has what's called attributes. And attributes are basically these keys that you want your object to have. So one attribute would be title. And we type these right underneath defining a class. We type the attribute name, we set it equals, and we have to give it a default value. So we're just going to give it a default value of title placeholder for now. And then, so what's another attribute I could give this book? What's something we wanted to capture data for this book?
The author.
Yes, the author. That's a good one. And that's literally what we had next in our dictionary. So author, and again, we're going to set it equal to a placeholder value for now because it has to have a default value. Okay, and then what is another attribute we can give this class?
Publisher.
Yep, publisher. So we see kind of the rhyme or reason now on our attributes, how we're picking them for our class. It's basically the key for a key value pair associated with this book object. So we'll give this publisher a publisher placeholder as well. I'm not going to do pages right now until we get to the next part, because what I'm showing you now is not how we will end up in classes, but it's going to step you to where we end up. So just hang on. So each class, I've got a class of a book, has attributes assigned to it. And much like a dictionary, I can target one of these attributes and replace the value. So I'm going to say I want a new book. I've got to, assign everything to a variable. I'm going to create a new book, and I'm going to make an instance of this book class. Okay, so right now, new book's title is going to be title placeholder. New book's author is going to be author placeholder. New book publisher going to be publisher placeholder. And you can access all these values just like we do in a dictionary. It's more common to see the dot notation here, though, than using the square brackets. So let's print out the new book's title. What do we think we will see when we print new book title, given what we just discussed? Somebody besides Alana, I see you keying up. No.
Okay.
Let's do Rain. What do we think this is going to print?
I'm not sure. Should it be the title in the class, the first one we?
Yep. So it's going to be this title that we have in the class, which is a default value of title placeholder. So this class gives us a template and has some default values assigned to it. And down here, when we create a new book off this class, new book is now, if we look in our picture that I had, where did I pull it off to? New book is now the object or the class instance. So new book has all these values assigned to it already because we created it off this template. So when we print this title, it should be the title that's automatically assigned to any new book that gets created. So let's go ahead and run it and see what happens and if that's right. Yep, we can see it's got title placeholder, so it does have that value in our template assigned to it. Now, do you see how I called or how I instantiated? You're going to hear these words a lot, so we're going to keep using them. I instantiated an instance of this book class. I call the class kind of like a function. It is basically call it a function. So I have the class name and then the parentheses after it, just like you would see in a function. That's how I instantiate this instance of a book object. Okay, so I can also replace these values now. I can say, okay, now we're going to change new book title to actually equal Catcher in the Rye. Tie. Catcher in the Rye. So now when I print new book title, it should, we're going to comment out this one because that will return the title placeholder. But after we assign it a new value, now this new book shouldn't have the default one. It should have our new title that we gave it. And we can see it indeed does. So in this example, we defined our class with our default values, and then we instantiated an instance of that class, and we just start updating the values of these default placeholders. Okay, so this is handy. This is nice, right? We can start using that to like put these books in there, but it doesn't really make it easier totally, because we still have to create this book first, and then we have to go and change every single one of these values. That's, I don't know, that's not really easier for me. I'd rather just create the dictionaries. So we'll go a step further because Python has a built-in special method, which a method is a name of a function that's hooked up to a class, basically. But it has a special method that will initialize a class with specific values that you pass in. So let's try rewriting this to now use that initialize function that will allow me to pass in values as parameters when I'm initializing a new class. Okay, so we keep it kind of same as here. We'll comment this out and rewrite so it doesn't get confusing. So we're still going to have a class called book. But this time now, instead of creating the attributes right underneath the class name, we're going to make this initialize method. And it's, you call it def or whatever, because it's a function. This is a function within this class. And this is called a dunder method when it has these little lines before and after. And you can see when I did that and pushed tab, it actually filled in the whole method for me here. So it has this thing called self here in this init or initialization method. Every single method you write underneath a class has to have self as the first parameter, because all these methods, all these functions will work on instances of this class, and so it has to be able to target itself. If you don't understand it, it's fine. Just make a note. Every single method you write in a class must have the word self first as its first parameter. So then we're going to set up now these attributes that we want to be able to initialize or instantiate in our new instance of a book. So we can define them down here, just like we did above, except instead of saying just title equals, we've got to say self.title equals. And now, how can we figure out what value we want to give it? We wanted to not be able to like, we don't want default values now. We want to be able to pass in values. So I want to be able to like pass in title as a parameter. So how do you think I can do that using a function? It gets us. How can I, like, if I wanted to be able to pass in a parameter in this function and use it as the title value?
You would put it after self,
Yep.
the parameters.
I would just add it as a parameter to this initialization method. And then anything that's passed in will now, we can use that title as this value. So this initialization method runs automatically when you create a new class instance. You don't have to call this method. When I run this book or this class command to instantiate a new instance of this book, it automatically runs this method. Okay, so we don't have to call this, it will automatically run. What other parameter or attributes did I want with this book that I want to be able to pass in as a parameter? I had title, but what else did I have?
Author.
Author, yeah. So let's use that as another thing we'll pass in. And publisher, right? Those are what we've got defined here. We dropped off pages real fast. We don't care. So we kind of follow suit with every attribute that we want to define for this class. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to say self.author is now going to equal that author parameter that's passed in, or argument parameter. I use those interchangeably. Publisher, we also say self.publisher is going to equal the value we pass in. Okay. Any questions that you can verbalize at this point before I keep trying to explain more things? So every class, we start by saying class and then the name. And then you include an initialization method, which is always going to be, you know, your function call and then this init with 2 underscores before and after it. Always takes self as the first parameter, and then you'll pass in every other parameter that you want as an attribute for this class. These self.title, self.author, self.publisher, that's just saying this instance of the book class. So this book I'm working on now is its title is going to equal whatever we pass it. And its author is going to equal the author you pass in. So let's see how that works now with this book we just did up above here. Well, we only passed in Catcher in the Rye, but whatever, we'll do more. No, we won't, because they don't have, oh, they do have title or author. Okay, so we still got to assign it to a variable, right? We're going to add another new book. And we have to instantiate our book object or our book instance. So we call our class book. Now, when I hover over book, you see it actually takes in 3 parameters at this point. It will accept a title, an author, and a publisher. Before, when we did it, it did not do that. Let's go back and look. So for this one, when we initialize this class, this one doesn't accept any arguments because it doesn't have this initialization method that lets us pass them in as parameters. This one does. This class has our initialization method. I can pass in title, author, and publisher right here in order. You have to pass them in order, so it expects. You could also do title equals, but that's too much typing, right? That's not the point of making these classes. We want to make it as easy as possible to instantiate these objects. So now we can just pass in title right off the bat. So we're going to pass in Catcher in the Rye. And then the second parameter this takes is a publisher. Or not publisher, sorry, author. So now we have a problem. I don't know the publisher to this book, but this class expects a publisher to be passed in. So what can I do to help kind of protect against this issue where they might not pass in every single
Could you write publisher placeholder?
So we could definitely do a placeholder. Now it's figuring out where to put that. So I don't necessarily want to put that down here because I need to still accept other arguments being passed in for another book. So if I create another, new book 2, I still want to be able to pass in completely different stuff for this book. So I don't want to mess up this whole ability to pass in a publisher. But do you remember in one of my classes before when I think it was recursion, in the recursion lesson, when I had a parameter that I wanted to set a value for right off the bat, but I didn't want to define it within the function itself. Do you remember where I did that? Where I set the value of that parameter?
Yeah, you said it in the what the parameter you take and you set it to none, I think.
Yep, I set it up here within the function
Yeah.
itself. And then I assigned it like a value. So let's just go ahead and do that, maybe. Let's say, okay, publisher is going to default to unknown. This is how we can assign a default value to a parameter in a function. And it works in class functions and methods, class methods. A function within a class is called a method. So it works within methods as well, where you can just assign a default value. So now, if this person doesn't pass it in, we can see it will automatically assign this unknown for publisher. But then it also gives the option for us to take one we do know. It's fine. I guess this random one here.
I have a question. Is that unknown like is that like using like keyword arguments?
So this is definitely together a keyword argument, but this because it's defined by the function, it's not. Are you thinking of like that quargs that I showed you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's we use quargs when we don't have defined key value pairs, but this is a defined one. So this is just a default value instead of doing like a quarg per se.
Okay.
If I didn't have publisher, then I would pass in like quargs and allow any number of keyword or key value pairs. So I could do that. I could actually, that would be fun. We can pass in quargs. And so then somebody could come in and just say, let's see, this is where I could add pages is like 410. And it would just make it a new attribute under that class. So yeah, we could add quargs. We'll see what quargs do in inheritance when we look at class inheritance. That'll be in the future, but that was a cool little side thing there. However, if I pass in pages for this book as a quarg, does that make it an option to pass in for other books? Like, would it know, does this book know about that extra parameter? This is a good thing to think about. So for this book here, why is it being weird? Oh, because I have 2 pages in there. I thought I deleted it. Ah, shoot, because of I have to pass in publisher before I can pass in pages, I think. Was not closed. It was closed. Oh, maybe it's this. Why is it being weird? Anyways, I'm going to continue on with my little spiel. We'll fix this in a second. But some publisher. I'm seeing if I pass in publisher, if that helps. No, it doesn't. What did I do wrong with passing that in? Oh, because it's not a colon, it's an equals. Right? my expected parameter name.
Do you need to call it out in the
Inline
parameters and in self.pages?
Yeah.
No, it was the first time I had it. Right.
Like, do you need publishers in your function? Your initial self.
I think I just passed it in pages equals. I have to, there, that's it. I needed to look at the syntax. So I don't need the publisher in there because I am explicitly saying which key it's targeting. So it would know that I'm not trying to do a publisher here, and it would be fine using the default value here. But I think this looks like the syntax I would have to use. Let's try. I'm gonna print and see if that worked. Otherwise, I have to look up the syntax for adding in the, oh, you meant here. I need the quarks here. Yeah. And then this. Right. Nope, that's still wrong. Maybe it is just okay. Well, let's see if we could get book. Or is it new book? I'm curious now if this works. I don't think new book has pages. No. Missing the author. I'd have to look at that more on how we do the passing in. That's a side tangent though. This is not what we're supposed to get into today. We will look more into passing in extra stuff. Maybe I do need publisher in there. It shouldn't matter since it has the default. Well, let's go ahead and take out quargs. And just print this now and see if it gives us that unknown as the default. Make sure I did this right. Let me clear. I did not. Why did it not? Catcher in the Rye. It's the author. Not a space? Print new book. No. I do not understand why that's not. Oh, probably because this is just messing it up because I didn't finish it. Yeah. Okay, so this was the one actually, if we see in the error below, the type error was book init is missing a required argument author. I passed in author in this one. But then if I looked up the line above, it said it actually threw the error on this line for new book 2, book foundation. So I had the name or the title of the book, but I didn't ever pass in the author. So it was actually complaining about that. So it couldn't instantiate this object. So it actually failed here. It's going to be the hard thing because some of those variables in the past, it didn't do anything unless if you called that variable and used it in something else. But because this variable is instantiating an object, it's creating a new object, these will throw errors if you don't do them correctly. But we can see that default value here does pass along and the publisher is unknown for us. That was such a big side tangent, but this is easier, right? Now we have a way to make new books, and instead of typing out all the way up here, instead of typing out title, all these key value pairs, we can just create book instances and just pass in the information when we create the instance. So we just take what we've been passing in up here and just pass them in as arguments for the initialization method. Let's print New book two's title. And we can access all these attributes with the dot notation. Perfect. Book two's title is foundation. All right. How are we feeling about making a class? Do you think if you had this in front of you, you can make, let's say, a dog class? Let's make a dog class. Okay, so how do I say I'm going to make a class? I'm going to set up a class for instances of dogs. I'm going to create a lot of different dogs to store in a database.
Class dog.
Yep, class dog. So we'll set up a class called dog. And again, I write classes so that I can just pass in information as I'm instantiating them. I don't want to have to do parameters here, or I guess attributes here. So every class will have this init method. So just go ahead and get used to immediately after you create the class, double underscore init, and it should be one of the ones that pops up here. You can tab and it will fill it all in for you. All right, so what kind of attributes should this dog have? What kind of pieces of information are important for each dog to have?
Breed.
Breed. Okay, we'll pass in breed.
Age.
Age. Okay, every dog has an age. What else do all dogs have?
Color.
A color. Yep, I like that. Let's give them a name too. Can they have a name?
Doesn't need a name. No, I'm just playing.
Name. Let's default it then to Fido. Okay, there's our name. Okay, so these are all of the attributes that our dog class will have. And so then these are options for, these are what our key value pairs are going to be within our dog object, which is an instance of dog. So now, following like we did up above, how can I make sure that when I pass these parameters in, when I'm creating a dog instance, it gets assigned to the specific dog I'm creating?
You have to, oh, actually, sorry, can you repeat the question?
So I'm just trying to fill out the rest of this init method now. How can I make sure that these parameters are assigned to this, like whatever dog I'm specifically working on?
Self.
You have to do self dot breed
Yep.
equals breed.
Yep, exactly. And notice I don't have to do commas in between each of these attributes. So just note that when y'all are creating it. In these init methods, you don't have to use commas to separate out each attribute. But good, self. So if we do self.breed, that means this instance of dog you are going to create with this breed that I pass it. Same thing with age. This instance of dog, you're going to give this age that I pass it. Same with color, self.color. Gets a little repetitive, but we could see the pattern, right? Which makes it easy. You don't stray from the pattern. Just keep the same pattern and you will create classes successfully. Self.name equals whatever name we pass in. Or it will default to Fido if we don't give it a name. It's a stray and we don't care. Put it in the shelter. Oh gosh, that's on recording. Oh, my dogs, well, I can't say that. One of my dogs is a shelter dog. Second one is not. He's my favorite. Okay, so now I've got this template. Yes, this is definitely just as repetitive. Well, oh, no, it's not, because now I want to create lots of dogs. So before, when I was creating lots of dogs, I had to type breed equals, age equals, color equals. But now that I have this class, which is a template, how can I create lots of dogs? Let's create a dog. Let's create dog one. How do I create this dog using my template I just made?
So first you put the breed,
Okay, but how can I
Unique
make it
dog
so I
first.
can pass in the breed?
quote double quotes, and put the breed.
Okay, but right now, if I just do dog equals double quotes and then the name of the breed.
You
Yeah,
got
you need to call
dog, the
the class.
Yes, exactly. I need to call the class first. I need to call this template. So I say, use this template of dog first. And then now we can pass in, like you said, the quotation marks, and then we can just go through and pass in these parameters as it prompts us. So they're usually in order as we define them here. So breed first. We will make, we'll use slang because I don't want to type it out. Yorkie. That's my favorite little boy. So we'll make a Yorkie dog first, and he is 3. Oh, that's not a string, that's an integer. What color is he? He is black and tan. And then his name is Spark. So now I've created a dog. This is arguably much faster than doing this. Fight me if you want, but I just had to pass in the values of everything using this class template. Okay, so I use this template, this class to initialize an instance of a dog, which is a specific dog. So let's make another dog. How do I make another dog? Let's make a second dog. Same thing, right?
Right.
It's the same exact thing. We say, okay, now we're going to make a different dog. It's still going to use the same template. So it's still going to have all these same attributes. It's going to have a breed, it's going to have an age and color and name, but it's a completely different dog. Okay.
Pitbull.
All right, let's make a pit bull. Do you do 2 words or 1 word?
I usually just do one, but I don't think it matters.
How about, wait, I got it. How about that?
There we go.
And age.
7.
7. Color.
Brindle.
Brindle, I love it. Okay, and name.
Millie.
Is it IE?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get back to regular pit bull. All right, so now we have 2 dogs, 2 different dogs. Each of them have different names, different colors, but it's still the same attributes for all of my dog objects. If that makes sense. But we can access each of these dogs' specific values for those attributes. So let's look at, again, dog one's name. Let's print that out on the screen. We'll print dog one's name. And then we can also, let's print dog 2 name. Let's get fancier. Actually, let's make an F string. So what is it? $sign on front? No, inside. $sign? No. Somebody remind me Python syntax. Otherwise, I'm just going to Google it. I think $sign
Thought
head.
it was F.
It's just an F inside of the, yeah, or outside of the quotation.
Oh, there's no dollar in Python. Okay.
No.
That's much easier. F string. That's why it's called an F string, Tiffany. Okay. So we'll say, again, with our F string, anything that's a dynamic value needs to have these little curly brackets around it. So we're going to say print dog one name is a, and let's print dog one's breed as well. Same thing down here, we will say dog 1 or dog 2 is, oh my gosh, not on the right keys, is a dog 2 breed. Alrighty. And we can see, yay, it took the values we passed in for our specific dogs and is returning them when we access the dog's instance, like that specific instance's name. Okay, don't worry if the whole class instantiation and instance thing is going a little over your head. That will come with time. But as long as we can follow this pattern of how to define a class, set up an initialization method full of all the different parameters that we want to pass in and define values for. That's what the goal is today, and you will have a chance to practice doing just this. I'm going to show you something a little further. That's just to expose you to what you're going to be doing tomorrow. So we have attributes that we can assign to a class, but a class can also have methods. As we see here, this is an initialization method. So a class can have functions associated with it. So I'm going to make a new method called bark. And every method underneath a class requires self as the first parameter. This method is simply going to print bark or oof on the screen. So now this function slash method is something that is accessible by any instance of dog. Like we're able to do dog1.name and it gives us that specific name. We can also do dog1.bark and we can call this method underneath our dog classes. So we printed out that dog and we said, yay, let's go ahead and call our method dog1bark. And we can tell it's not just a variable or a parameter or an attribute because we have the function call like parentheses right after it. So I'm calling this function bark. This function is within this class dog. Hey, this kind of looks familiar, right? Aren't there a few functions you have called on like, you know, list1.append, and then you pass in something to append? This is a function in a class called list or whatever, or actually, well, it's not called list, but it's a method within a class that works on lists. So this is a method within this class dog that works for every dog. Every dog can use bark and it does this. So now let's call this and we can say, yay, it barked. Spark barked. Dog 2 would do the exact same thing. Since there's nothing different happening like for each dog, it's simply just performing this action. But that's just a little preview to what you'll go into more tomorrow. Today is all about setting up a class and defining these attributes with an initialization method and getting comfortable kind of creating instances of this class. All right, any questions before I stop recording? Okay, let me stop recording and I will go over challenge for the day.